And welcome back. In our Melbourne studio is a woman called Leonie Sheedy. She runs an organisation called CLAN, which I think is the Care Leavers Australia network. And Leonie is just one of so many, too many children ripped away from their parents at very young ages and thrust into orphanages. In the 50s, 60s and even into the 70s, this was pretty commonplace in Australia. And the dislocation, the cruelty to very young, bewildered, frightened children is just, I think, one of the sad blights on our earlier days. It's just amazing how community values change. One would hope, one would pray indeed, that it wouldn't happen today. Leonie Sheedy, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Graham.
Now, can I just go through your own story first before we get to CLAN and the Royal Commission, because that is something that I think is extraordinarily important. Now, you were taken away from your family at 3 and there were 7 of you, is that correct?
There were 7 children, but there were children in orphanages before I was even born, Graham, and I was placed in an orphanage. I wasn't taken from my parents. I was placed.
Oh, so your parents gave you away in that sense?
I think my mother walked away and my father was left with all these children, and we weren't going. My older sister wasn't going to school. She was being a mother to the younger children.
Yeah, it's a very sad story, but at 3 years old it must have been incredibly difficult.
Well, my first memory was at St Catherine's Orphanage in Geelong, was hiding behind somebody's legs with black material in front of me, and I presume that black material is the nun's habit, and I really can't bear to look at people all dressed in black today. I never go out in all black. I have to have colour on me.
Yeah, it's terribly sad. I did speak to you yesterday about some of this, and I must say it's a story that just amazes me. Now, it also meant your family was split, didn't it? And it's really hard to ever put it back together. Once you're all separated for all those years, all your childhood years, you just don't grow up with the normal sort of sibling relationships.
No, you don't. And I have 3 sisters today who don't wish to have contact with me because I feel that I'm a reminder of a past they want to forget. And my son, when he was about 7 once, we were sitting down having dinner in Sydney, and he said to me, "Mum, have you ever sat at the same table as all your brothers and sisters?" And I said to my little boy, "No, I've never sat at the same table as all my brothers and sisters."
And you never will?
Yes, I never will. It's very difficult to grow up without your parents. However dysfunctional those parents are, they are still your parents. And every child should have the right to know who their parents are. And even if they're not suitable to look after, or they've got mental health issues, or, they're pedophiles, you still need to know who your father and mother are in order to make sense of who you are. And the governments of this country failed miserably by not giving children who are raised in orphanages the chance to know their parents and their identity. Our parents were considered just no-hopers and trash. And, we better remove them from people because they're just not going to raise these children well.
Well, we've got a Royal Commission into a lot of the issues that were raised once children were put into orphanages and care of all sorts of organisations, be it the Catholic Church or the Anglican Church or Salvation Army or whatever. There's just been so much abuse. But what we learned, I think, from the Irish experience is that the nuns could be pretty cruel, and I think you experienced a fair bit of that too, didn't you?
I certainly did. And I've counted about 28 nuns in my 13 years at St Catherine's Orphanage. And there was one particularly very cruel and vicious woman, and on the other hand there was one decent nun, Sister Genevieve. And
who's still part of your life?
She's still part of my life. She's in her 80s and she lives in Mornington in Victoria, and she came to my 60th birthday. But there was a restaurant in Sydney called Luigi's, and I couldn't even walk in that restaurant with my children because that was the name of that very vicious nun who caused an enormous amount of damage to me. She hit children with switches from trees, and she was as vicious as... She's caused a lot of pain, not just to me, but many children, both male and females, who are in that orphanage.
The nuns seem to escape when it comes to the Royal Commission. They don't seem to get the same looking into, the same examination, the same investigation as say, the brothers and the priests. But just to get onto your family, obviously, if you're all in institutions, it would be hard for me to believe that there wasn't abuse, and I do mean sexual abuse. There must have been some in a family that large, with all of them in 26 orphanages over time.
Well, my brother, who was in 9 orphanages in Victoria, he was raped by Brother Webster at St Augustine's in Geelong. He was raped by a government employee at Royal Park, the depot where every Victorian state ward went, and he was also raped by other boys in the Bendigo Boys' Home. I didn't see my brother for 40 years, and I didn't see another brother for 21 years. I don't know what happened to that younger brother, but I think something did happen. But I think many of us, we block out what happened to us. It's so painful, and we haven't told people what happened to us, Graham, because we were so afraid of not being believed.
Yeah, well, I mean, even if you look at the case of Robert Hughes, you know, the children who were making allegations against him were largely not believed in the 80s. I mean, there was a pattern of this in our society, and I guess the only way you make sure it never happens again is to make sure it's revealed. Did your brother have an opportunity to talk to the Royal Commission?
No, my brother died in my house in Sydney. He died on the day that the letter came from Melbourne saying that there was going to be a meeting with the Christian Brothers and the Victorian government. He died never knowing that letter arrived, that there would be a meeting to talk about a settlement from both of those organisations. I kept pursuing that case, and 6 months later I met with the Christian Brothers and the Victorian government, and they settled for $15,000. We were never after any money. We were after justice for Anthony, and we used that money to put a headstone on his grave, and I used the rest of that money to go to New York to present Clan's submission to the United Nations on torture, and we handed it over to Gary Quinlan in New York, and with the help of Richard Marles. And, you know, Anthony shouldn't have had to wait years and years for his payout, but that's what they're hoping to do, prolong these cases so that these people die, and they don't have long life expectancies, Graham. No, they don't. They don't have good health.
I understand that, and you've got to say $15,000 is just a dreadful, miserable pittance for the ruination of a life. Can we just move on to Clan, your organisation? Now, you would represent an awful lot of these people who have been abused. With the Royal Commission, is everyone getting to tell their story?
Look, I do represent a lot of people, and we have close to 1,000 members, and the oldest is 98, the youngest is about 30. The Royal Commission are doing a tremendous job to fit in the thousands of people who wish to tell their story of being sexually used in this country by all manner of people. There are 800 people waiting this year for a private hearing. There are many of our members who haven't even registered for the Royal Commission. Many of our members, Graham, don't really understand that what happened to them as children is deemed to be sexual abuse. I spend an awful lot of time saying, did they look at you when you were in the showers? Did you have to show your underpants every night? Did they beat you on the bottom when they beat you? Most of the people I deal with say, oh yeah, but that was normal. I say, that is not normal, to beat little children 85 times on the bare bum. That is absolutely abnormal, and the only way I can get through to many of our care leavers is to say, do you have a grandchild? Would you like me to come into your home and do what was done to you as a child? Would you find that acceptable? And as quick as Errol Flynn, they'll say, of course not.
Yeah,
I say, well, why is it good? Why is it good enough to do it to you as a child?
Yeah, but I mean, obviously the repressed memories are important to some because they just can't face what happened to them. But just get back to that question. This Royal Commission's got to cover a massive number of abused people. When you add up all the institutions, whether it's the Salvation Army or the Catholic Church or the Scouts, whatever, the numbers, you read the papers, there's just thousands upon thousands. I mean, will the Commission be able to interview them all? Because I think a lot of them do want to tell their story, don't they?
Well, there were 500,000 Australians put in the 800 plus orphanages, children's homes and foster care in this country. And, you know, I would like the federal government, and our Prime Minister was most supportive of this Royal Commission. He was the first to lend his support to the Royal Commission. I would like the federal government to issue an extension of time to alleviate the anxiety for care leavers who are thinking that they're going to miss out, that they won't be heard. There is so many people. I don't think people realised how many people have been sexually abused and used in this country. And I call on Mr Abbott to please extend the Royal Commission so people do, everybody who needs to tell the Royal Commission gets that chance and that opportunity to unburden themselves and to die with some peace at least. Like the man I went to see this morning in the Kerrang Hospital who's dying, and he got the opportunity to tell his story to the Royal Commission yesterday. And
they came to the bedside, did they?
I beg your pardon?
They came to the bedside, did they?
They did come to the bedside and they recorded it. And Peter McClellan did a most wonderful thing. He's the chair of the Royal Commission. He sent a letter to Barry Wilson thanking him for his courage to speak out in the last couple of days of his life. And I want to show you what Barry did when he finished his story. This has been told to me. He got his fist and he punched it through the air and he said, "I did it." So that's just a wonderful story for people to know that, you know, he's dying and he got a chance, but how many other people won't get that opportunity?
Well, we'll have to make sure they do. Look, I have to leave it there. I want to say in conclusion, despite the kind of childhood you had, the fact that you can be married to the same bloke for 43 years happily shows there is a triumph occasionally in these things. I wish you well. I wish all those you represent well. It is a terrible tragedy you've had to overcome. But in every one of those tragedies, you just see the occasional triumph, and that's an inspiration for all of us. Thanks very much, Leonie.
Thanks, Graham, for having me on.
OK, we'll be back in just a moment with Mark Butler.